Alina had never known luxury. Her world was one of cracked walls, hammer-down clothes, and the scent of freshly baked bread from her mother's tiny home bakery. But what she lacked in wealth, she made up for in dreams. She would spend hours sketching dress designs in the back of her old-school notebooks, imagining a world where she'd be a fashion mogul, not a nameless girl from a nameless town. She was sharp, determined, and kind-hearted. But none of that mattered in a world where status was everything. Especially not to people like Daniel Walsh. Daniel was the golden boy. Wealthy, handsome, and admired by everyone at Ridgewood High. When he first noticed Alina, everyone was stunned. Why her? The poor girl with second-hand shoes and homemade lunches? But Alina was different, and for a moment, Daniel liked different. They became inseparable. Or so she thought. He took her to parties, kissed her in front of crowds, and whispered promises of a future together. But slowly, cracks began to show. He flinched when she talked about her part-time job. He made excuses when she wanted him to meet her mother. And every time she brought up her dream of starting her own fashion label, he laughed like it was a child's fantasy. "I mean, it's cute, Alina," he said once, lounging on his parents' yacht. "But let's be real. How do you plan to do all that with, no money?" She laughed it off then. But she remembered. She always remembered. It was Daniel's birthday, his 21st. The ballroom was drenched in gold and champagne. Everyone wore tuxedos and glittering dresses, but Alina wore the one she'd sewn herself. It was elegant, subtle, and hers. She walked in, nervous but proud. This was her chance to show him, and everyone, that she belonged. But the moment she arrived, whispers started. "Is that homemade? Did she really think she could just show up like she's one of us?" Daniel saw her, but he didn't rush to her side. Instead, he turned to his friends and chuckled. Alina froze. When he finally walked over, he didn't kiss her, didn't hug her. He looked her up and down and sighed. "You couldn't wear something normal for once?" he asked. Her throat tightened. "I made this, Daniel. For you. For tonight." He shrugged. "Maybe that's the problem." The words hit her like a slap. But it got worse. Later that night, after hours of enduring stares and snide comments, Alina overheard him. Daniel, laughing with his friends. "I mean, come on," he said. "Did you really think I'd end up with someone like her? She's cute, sure, but let's be real. She's just a project. One I'm done with." The laughter echoed in her ears long after the music faded. Alina left the party without saying goodbye. She didn't cry on the drive home. Not even when she passed the diner where they'd had their first date. Not when she walked into her room and saw her sketchbooks, her vision boards, her dreams taped to the wall. But when she sat on the floor of the tiny kitchen, her mother sleeping just a room away, she finally let herself break. "I'll never be enough," she whispered. But the thing about rock bottom, it gives you a foundation. The next morning, she made a decision. No more waiting to be accepted. No more designing for approval. If no one would believe in her, she would believe in herself. Louder, fiercer, and without apology. Alina dropped out of university. She worked 2 jobs, waitressing by day, stocking shelves by night. Every spare moment was spent sewing, sketching, studying. She watched free YouTube tutorials on fabric cutting techniques, learned marketing from podcasts, and sold handmade bags on Etsy just to afford better thread. The world didn't clap for her, but she kept going. Years passed. Her hands became calloused. Her eyes, sharper. She failed, a lot. But each failure was a lesson. Each lesson, a brick in the empire she was quietly building. And then, one day, a video changed everything. It started with a DM. "Hey, are you the one who made this bag? I saw it on a girl in a cafe. I need one. Can you ship to LA?" Alina was stunned. Her heart pounded. She shipped the bag. That girl in a cafe turned out to be a mid-tier influencer. The bag got featured in a story. Orders exploded. Within weeks, she launched her own online store, ALYX Design, a name inspired by the nickname Daniel used to tease her with. Her living room became a factory. Her designs went viral on TikTok. Celebrities started wearing her pieces. She was invited to her first fashion week. She cried in the bathroom when her collection got a standing ovation. She wasn't just a designer now. She was a brand. A millionaire. And as fate would have it, an invitation arrived. Daniel's engagement party. A black tie affair. He was marrying Chloe Hartford, daughter of a billionaire. The kind of girl he was always supposed to end up with. Alina smiled as she read the invite. She marked the date. The engagement party was held at the Monarch, a 5-star rooftop venue overlooking the skyline, dripping in wealth and design to impress. Crystal chandeliers glistened overhead, soft jazz filled the air, and servers floated by with trays of gold-rimmed champagne glasses. Alina stepped in, fashionably late, as always. She wore a custom gown of her own design, deep emerald velvet with a plunging back and subtle gold embroidery that caught the light with every breath she took. Her hair was swept into a soft, regal bun, her earrings delicate but bold. Everything about her screamed elegance and silence, the kind of silence that made people stop and stare. She was the storm that had finally arrived in style. And the whispers started instantly. Who is that? She looks so familiar. Oh my God, is that Alina? Daniel didn't notice at first. He was too busy entertaining guests, laughing too loudly, sipping champagne like he hadn't a care in the world. Chloe stood beside him in a dazzling white dress, her smile rehearsed and her eyes scanning the room for approval. And then someone nudged him. He looked up. Time slowed. There she was, walking through the crowd like a queen through peasants. Calm, composed, and completely untouchable. His jaw clenched. Chloe followed his gaze and frowned. Do you know her? Daniel's voice was low, hesitant. I did. A long time ago. Alina made her way to the bar, ignoring the crowd. She didn't need to talk. Her presence was louder than any words. And then, just like she planned, Daniel approached her. Alina, he said, cautiously. She turned slowly, like she hadn't noticed him until now. Her smile was calm and cutting. Daniel, she replied. It's been a while. He looked her up and down, trying to process what he was seeing. Wow, you look amazing. Thanks, she said, casually sipping her drink. It's a custom design. One of mine. He blinked. You're still doing that? The fashion stuff. She laughed softly. No, I own it now. There was silence. He didn't quite know what to say. He was used to being the one in control, the one with the charm and confidence. But now he felt like a boy again, standing in front of someone who had grown into something he could never touch. You look different, he said, trying to recover. I am different, she said, tilting her head. That's what happens when you stop letting other people define your worth. He looked down for a second, then back up. Listen, about everything that happened back then. She held up a hand, still smiling. Don't. It's not necessary. I'm not here for apologies. I just wanted to see how far I've come. He chuckled awkwardly. Well, you've certainly done well for yourself. She leaned in slightly. And to think, you said I'd never make it because I had no money. That silenced him. Before he could respond, a voice interrupted them. Daniel. It was Chloe, walking up beside him with a curious glance. Aren't you going to introduce me? Alina turned and extended a hand. Alina Vega, CEO of Alex Design. Chloe shook it with a forced smile. Fashion? Oh, how nice. Alina smiled, amused. Yes, you're actually wearing one of our knockoffs. From Zara, right? Chloe's face fell, and Daniel stiffened. Well, Alina said, finishing her drink, congratulations on the engagement. I'm sure it'll be exactly what you both deserve. She walked away without looking back. The rest of the night was a blur of murmurs and curiosity. People came up to her, eager to reconnect or claim they always believed in her. Some asked for photos. Others just stared. She wasn't rude, But she wasn't interested either. For Alina, this wasn't about revenge. It was about closure. She had worked hard, bled, cried, sacrificed, and now, here she was. Not just successful, but centered, calm, self-possessed. The kind of woman Daniel would chase today, if only she weren't already out of reach. From across the room, she caught his gaze once more. He looked at her like a man watching the train he should have boarded vanish into the distance. No anger, no malice, just deep, quiet regret. The party ended, but the night didn't. 3 days later, Alina received a message. Daniel Walsh. Hey, can we talk? Just dinner. No pressure. She stared at it for a moment, then smiled sadly. People don't change. They only regret missing the chance to. She didn't reply. Instead, she closed the laptop and walked into a meeting with her design team. Alex was about to launch a new collection. And this time, it would be international. It arrived on a cold Wednesday morning. Alina was reviewing designs for her upcoming Paris launch when her assistant, Myra, stepped in with a puzzled look. This came for you, she said. No return address. Hand-delivered. Alina raised a brow. She took the envelope, its cream parchment weighty in her hand. Her name was written in black ink, sharp and deliberate. She opened it. And her breath caught. Dear Alina, I know I'm the last person you ever expected to hear from. But I'm dying. And I have no one else. Please come. Richard Walsh. Her hands trembled slightly. Richard Walsh. Daniel's father. The man who once told her, without blinking, that people like her didn't belong in his family's world. He had humiliated her in front of Daniel, once called her a charity case dressed in lipstick. And now he was calling her. Alina sat in silence for hours that night, the letter on her table untouched, her glass of wine warm and forgotten. Memories swirled, Daniel's betrayal, the laughter of rich party guests, the crushing feeling of being reminded she wasn't one of them. And yet, something tugged at her. She wasn't that girl anymore. She wasn't angry. She wasn't fragile. But she was curious. Why her? Why now? The next morning, she packed a small bag and left the city behind. No press. No entourage. Just Alina, returning not as a victim, but as a woman in control of her own narrative. The Walsh estate hadn't changed much. Still perched on that sunlit hill, its iron gates opening like jaws. Inside, the walls were lined with paintings and polished wood, the air thick with a kind of wealth that smelled of age and secrets. She was led to the study, where Richard sat in a grand leather chair, his face gaunt, eyes dimmed by time. He looked up as she entered. You came, he rasped. I almost didn't, she said, standing tall. He gave a small, tired laugh. You always had fire. That's why I hated you. She raised an eyebrow. And that's why I respected you, he added. She crossed her arms. Why am I here, Richard? He motioned toward the chair across from him. Because I'm dying. And I need you to hear what I have to say. She didn't sit. She listened. I built this empire, Walsh and Company, with my own hands. I gave Daniel everything. But he doesn't have the spine. He doesn't have what you have. When I heard what you've become, I was angry. But I was also impressed. Alina said nothing. I want you to take over part of the business, he said. Not because I like you, but because I trust you'll protect it. You understand value, sacrifice, growth. She blinked, stunned for a moment. You want me to run part of your empire? Richard coughed, a painful, crackling sound. I'm offering you a seat at the table. You earned it more than he ever did. That night, Alina stood by the guest room window, staring at the estate gardens below. Her heart was a storm. This was everything she had wanted once. To be recognized, validated, welcomed into the world that had rejected her. And yet, now that she had it, it felt hollow. Was she walking into a trap? Or was this a chance to rewrite history? She called Myra. He wants me to help run Walsh and Company. Her assistant gasped. Are you serious? That's huge. Do you want it? I don't know yet, Alina whispered. But I can't lie, it would be poetic. Richard insisted on hosting a private dinner with Daniel the next evening. It was awkward from the start. Daniel looked uncomfortable in his tailored suit, clearly caught off guard by his father's favoring of Alina. You've got to be kidding me, Daniel muttered as he poured wine. This is a joke, right? Richard was blunt. She has vision. You have excuses. Alina remained composed, watching the two men volley back and forth. Daniel's ego was bruised. But what struck her most was how little he'd changed. Still arrogant. Still entitled. I made a mistake, he said suddenly, turning to her. I should have never let you go. Alina laughed softly. You didn't let me go, Daniel. You dropped me. And I climbed higher without you. Richard clapped, coughing through the sound. Exactly. That's the spirit we need. Daniel looked furious. And Alina? She smiled. A week after the dinner, Alina was invited back to the estate, not for conversation, but to sign the initial agreement. Richard's legal team was present, their expressions a little too stiff, their eyes watching her closely. The papers outlined a co-executive role, 40% of the company's creative control, a full division to rebrand, and a direct seat at the boardroom table. She'd have influence, power, position. But there was something odd. Clause 17b, non-disclosure of legacy family operations. She frowned. What's this? Richard gave a dismissive wave. Old family protocols. It's nothing that concerns your part of the business. But something in his tone felt off. Too quick. Too evasive. Alina didn't sign. Not yet. Later that night, as she sat in her hotel suite reviewing the documents, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. A voice, low and rushed, came through. If you value what you've built, don't sign that contract. She straightened. Who is this? I worked under Richard for 10 years. There's a part of Walsh & Company that isn't in the press releases or quarterly reports. Offshore assets, buried debt, and something darker. Why are you telling me this? Because you're not one of them. And because if you sign, they'll own you too. The line went dead. Alina sat in silence. The room felt colder, her instincts kicked in. Over the next several days, Alina used her own team, discreet forensic accountants and digital investigators, to look into Walsh & Company's financial archives. What they found made her skin crawl. Over a span of 2 decades, the company had funneled millions into untraceable holdings, shell companies, political lobbyists, even real estate laundering. It wasn't just shady. It was criminal. And her name would have been tied to all of it, had she signed. She realized then, this wasn't about legacy. This was about survival. Richard didn't respect her. He needed a scapegoat. Someone new. Someone clean. Someone like her. Alina didn't wait for a scheduled meeting. She stormed into the estate one rainy afternoon, thunder rolling behind her like a warning drum. Her heels echoed through the marble halls as she found Richard alone in his study, his oxygen tank softly hissing beside him. You almost had me, she said, voice cold. He didn't turn. So, you found it. I found everything. The laundering. The debts. The manipulation. You didn't want me to run the company. You wanted to use me as a shield. He finally looked at her, a ghost of a smirk on his lips. You're smart. That's why I chose you. She stepped closer. And you're a coward. That's why you'll die alone. He laughed, dry and hollow. If you think walking away is strength, you've already lost. This world doesn't reward decency. It punishes it. She stared at him, really stared. And for the first time, she didn't feel fear. Or rage. She felt pity. Then I guess I'm not of this world, she said. And I never needed your name. I made my own. She turned to leave. Alina, he called after her, voice weaker now. You could have had it all. She paused in the doorway. I already do. Days later, Alina stood before her own board of directors. I've decided to expand Alex International, she announced. We'll be launching a new initiative, ethical fashion sourcing, transparent manufacturing, and a scholarship fund for underprivileged women in design. The room broke into applause. No inheritance. No dirty empire. Just her vision. Her rules. Her legacy. And somewhere, far from the lights and glass towers, Richard Walsh was left to reckon with the empire he built. Alone, fading, and irrelevant. It was an ordinary afternoon at the Alex Design HQ. The sunlight cut through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Models laughed in the studio. Samples of the next season's collection were draped across a long oak table. Alina was reviewing sketches when Myra stepped in. "You have a visitor," she said carefully. "He didn't make an appointment, but I thought you'd want to know." Alina looked up, already sensing the name before it left Myra's lips. Daniel. Alina sighed, her expression unreadable. "Send him in." He entered slowly, as if he knew he didn't belong in this world anymore. She didn't stand. She didn't smile. He Saturday. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to see." "You were right," she said simply. He nodded, eyes down. "But I had to come. Not to win you back. Not to make excuses. Just to say what I should have said a long time ago." Daniel looked older, not in years, but in wear. He had the look of a man who had seen what he lost too late. "I was weak. I let my fear of what people thought get louder than what I felt for you. And I've lived with that mistake every day." Alina studied him. "You left me when I had nothing. When I was at my lowest." "I know. And you didn't just survive. You soared. You became everything I was too blind to believe in. And I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Not because I want anything from you. Just because you deserve to hear it." The room was quiet. His words hung there, raw and unfinished. She could see he meant it. That didn't erase the pain. But it mattered. And in her heart, a part of her softened. Because even if she didn't need the apology, she had once needed him to believe in her. And now, she believed in herself enough to let it go. A week later, Alina stood on a stage in front of an auditorium filled with young women, scholarship recipients of the New Vega initiative. She wore a sleek black suit. No diamonds. No dramatics. Just presence. Power. She spoke calmly. "I was once told I would never succeed because I came from nothing. But you don't need wealth to have value. You don't need status to be extraordinary. You just need one thing." She paused. "Resilience." The crowd erupted in applause. Tears streamed down some faces. They didn't see her as untouchable. They saw themselves in her. And that was her greatest achievement. That night, as Alina walked through the quiet halls of her home, her phone buzzed with a message. "Daniel, I saw your speech. You're changing lives. I'm proud of you." She didn't reply. She didn't need to. But she smiled. In her heart, she had already answered. Months passed. Alex International had expanded to 6 countries. The scholarship fund had grown into a mentorship program. Alina was now a guest lecturer, a board advisor, and a household name. But she never forgot where she started. Every year, on the anniversary of the day Daniel left her, she visited the same park bench where she had once cried alone, broken and poor. Now she sat there not as a victim, but as a reminder. Not every wound leaves a scar. Some become wings. This is where it ends, and where it begins. Alina Vega wasn't just the girl who was abandoned for being poor. She was the woman who came back stronger, kinder, smarter, and unshakably whole. She didn't return to prove Daniel wrong. She returned to prove herself right. And in the end, the sweetest victory wasn't the money. It was becoming the woman no one saw coming.